Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead, where today we are going to continue our series of videos on cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 3 meals in a piece of off-grid equipment. And today we're going to be focusing on thermal cookers. As you can see, I have a whole lot of thermal cookers spread out here. And the only reason I have this many is because I went through a phase, one of my phases, where I was really investigating and researching, trying to figure out which ones work the best. And I can save you some time and money based on my experience, unless you want to do the same thing that I did, because I wanted to find what worked best. And I do have some ideas about that. The first thing that we're going to do is quickly go through these types of thermal cookers, and then I'm going to make some recommendations. This is a Wonder Bag, and I originally bought this on Amazon. Amazon no longer carries them, and they're hard to find. But please don't worry about that, because and they're wonderful. I really like them. It's just an insulated bag into which you can put just a regular pot of something to cook it. Now, the idea behind thermal cooking is you get the food and the pot hot, and then you put it inside something that is quite heavily insulated, and then there's no more use of energy. It uses the energy from the original heating of the food, and it just conserves that energy through the use of a lot of insulation. Next up are the thermos types of insulators, and I have a variety. These 3 are Stanley. Now, this one works well for soups, and I showed this in a video on thermal cooking. The downside is its narrow mouth. This one is one of my favorites, and this is the one that we're going to make breakfast with today. This has a wide mouth, and it works just great. If I were to only pick one thing out of all of these, this would be it. This is the Stanley 3-quart cooker, and it's double-walled. It's like a thermos, and I've had the most success using this piece of equipment. The Stanley things that we use, that I use and like, are in our Amazon store. Next is a Ziga pot. This has a heat sensor on the inside and a dial up on top. It's double, it's very heavy, double-walled. And it was a little bit expensive. It came with a very high recommendation. I didn't find it to be very useful for me at all. This one is a Saratoga Jax, and I had great hope for it. It has an inner pot, so you can cook, and this can go directly on your burner. This can go directly on your burner. You can cook quite a large meal, a 2-course meal, and you can directly heat these on your stove. Once you get everything all hot and steamy, you put it in this double-walled insulated pot, and then it sits for several hours. Now, the theory behind this seems to be very solid. What I did not like about this is that it leaks. It says that you can carry this to the beach. Well, don't carry it to the beach if you're doing anything with liquidy stuff like soup, because it leaks like crazy. So the only time I will use this is when I'm at home and it can sit stationary on a counter so that it doesn't leak. Now, do you need all of these? No, you don't. You could stuff pillows into an ice chest and put your pot right down inside that ice chest. And that is heavily insulated, so you can wrap a pot in a blanket and do the same thing. They used to call these hay boxes. Now, today we are going to cook breakfast, and one of my favorite breakfasts is 6-grain cereal. Now, this 6-grain cereal looks just like rolled oats. It is a 6-grain rolled cereal. All right, this is a very simple process. All I need to do is to measure 1 cup. This is for breakfast cereal, and this would work for both Jim and me. 1 cup of this rolled, and it looks just like rolled oats, only it is 6 grains, 6 different grains. And I just put that in. And I like my morning cereal with a little bit of fruit. These are craisins. And I'm just going to put a handful of craisins in. And if I wanted to, I could put sweetener in as well. And you could also heat it with milk instead of with water, the way that I'm going to do. So there are lots of different ways that you can do this. And then at night, before you go to bed, you add your boiling water. And this is 2 cups of boiling water. Now the object is to keep as much mass in here without airspace as possible. And so this comes up to here. I'm going to just put the lid on quickly. And I'm just going to wiggle it back and forth, put the extra lid in place. And now this can sit out on the cabinet for 8 hours, 6 hours, and then it will be ready to eat for breakfast. We will come back when this is done and I'll show you what it looks like. Meanwhile, it's just going to sit out here on the countertop. So we are back. It's been about 4 hours and we're going to go ahead and check it. Now this will go in about 4 hours. It will also last overnight. In the morning it will still be steamy hot. We're going to go ahead and do it right now to just check it to see how it looks. Ooh, very hot still. Don't know if you can see in here. I'm just going to dish out enough for a little bit of breakfast for me. Those craisins have completely rehydrated. They were pretty tough. And there also is enough for Jim for breakfast as well. He's not as fond of this cereal as I am. And then you can add sweetener or milk or whatever. So I'm just going to go ahead and have a taste. Get one of those craisins. Oh, very hot. Perfect. Soft. And all of the blend of those whole grains in there is just delicious. Now, you can use this very same method for cooking steel cut oats. Now, steel cut oats are much harder in texture than this rolled grain cereal is. And so you would need a good 8 hours for that. You could also do any cracked grain cereal like cracked wheat or any of the wheats, or you could do quinoa or amaranth or anything this very same way. This concludes breakfast. Let's go on to lunch. Today's lunch is chicken mushroom rice, and we're going to be using the Stanley 3-quart thermal cooker right here. And here are all of the ingredients. Now the idea here is we need to get these all hot as can be, even to the boiling point. Then take it off this heat and put it right in here and shut this down. And this one does not take 6 to 8 hours. This one should take only a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours before it's fully ready to go, which puts it perfectly timed for our lunch. So I'm using our little butane stove. And we have our carbon monoxide alarm set up right here. The back door is cracked a little bit. As we have chicken, carrots, mushroom, onions with a little bit of garlic sprinkled on the top, soy sauce, and rice. And go the onions and the garlic. Onions are done enough. I'm going to put the mushrooms and the carrots in. I'm going to move them to one side and put the chicken in. All right, I'm mixing everything together now. The chicken was seared pretty much all around. Smelling really good. Now I'm going to sprinkle the rice. Add 1 cup of water. Soy sauce. This smells wonderful. Then I'm just going to add a little salt and pepper. And we are going to make sure that this comes to a thorough and complete boil and boils for 2 minutes. So everything is completely heated. This is the kind of a boil you want to see. It's boiling everywhere. Everything is completely heated through, but it is far from done. Veggies aren't done, chicken isn't done, and the rice isn't done. But we're done, and we are now going to move it right over into this thermal cooker. Okay, so you can see how hot and steamy that is. I'm now going to just put this in place, lock it. For extra security, extra insulation, I am going to put this in the Wonder Bag. Now, today, when we don't have a grid down situation and I have access to everything in my kitchen, I'm not too concerned if this doesn't quite work and I have to open it up, but it's not done, and then I can just pop it in the oven and finish it off. But in a true grid down situation where we are all very concerned with energy consumption, I am going to make use of every single thing at my disposal in order to secure the safety of my family's food. Oh, let me see, I need to put that inner cushion in place first. I can wrap around it as an extra insulator. That makes perfect sense to me. So now I feel really secure that this is going to cook just fine and will be ready for us for lunch in either 2 or 3 hours. So we'll be back then to check it and see how it has turned out. Welcome back. It has been 3 hours. Jim is delayed in town on errands, and so I'm just going to be shooting this with my iPhone on a little tripod. Let's open this up and see how we're doing. Wow, it's really, really warm. It should be completely finished. I want to take the temperature of it when we get it open. I'm going to get the thermometer ready right now. Okay. Now this has a little vacuum release button right here. So I can just open that up and then it will allow me to open the container. And it is completely done. I'm going to try to get this up here where you can see it. So there it is. And the chicken is done. Well, I think it is. I'm going to have a little taste of it and we will see. It's absorbed all of the liquid. So let's see if everything is done. Chicken. Great flavor, completely done. Let's see if the rice is done. Rice and onions, perfectly done. Here's a carrot, soft as can be, and a little mushroom. This is very delicious, and it is completely done. The advantage here is 20 minutes, that's all the meal prep I had to do, and then just wait for it to get finished. And the great thing is I can walk away from this. I don't worry about burning. I don't worry about it getting too dry. Everything worked out just absolutely perfectly. So this is a great success. And next up is our supper. We are ready for the last segment of this video on thermal cookers, and we are going to be doing something pretty exciting. And if you think for 1 minute that me, of all people, would be doing an experiment, well, you're right, I am. I'm going to try something new to me. It may not be new out there, but it's new to me in terms of thermal cooking. I've just turned the heat on under this pot. This is the Ziga pot that I'm not too impressed with, but it will do for today. It's double-walled, which helps the insulation. I'm going to just add, I've just turned the heat on underneath. I'm going to add a little bit of oil. And I have 3 pork chops right here. These are more like pork steaks. They're boneless. And I'm going to salt and pepper them, and then we're going to put them in this pot, brown them on both sides, start heat. We've got to get them heated all the way through, but they won't be done. Then we will add some onions and some apples that I have ready right here. And a little bit of apple cider. And we will bring that to a boil to make sure everything is heated. Then I'm going to put it in this container. This container has a watertight lid. I'm going to snap that lid down, put it back in this pot, and cover everything with boiling water. None of the water will get into this little container. And the reason that I am doing that is so that we can fill the entire pot with mass of some kind. And in this case, we want it to be heated to the boiling point mass, which will be water, plus the food on the inside here will be hot as well. Let's get started on this. I'm going to salt and pepper the meat, and we're putting these in to brown them. Pork chops are seared on both sides. I'm now going to add the apple. And I'm only going to add part of this onion. I think I've prepared too much onion. I think that's probably about right there. Stir this around a little bit. I have some unsweetened apple cider. I don't want to add any more sugar than is already in this. Just a little bit for the bottom. Putting the lid back on. We're going to let that finish braising, and then we are going to go to the next step. So we emptied out the pot into the container. We're putting the container down inside this pan, which is still hot. Pouring boiling water over it. We have it all in here. There's still about this much of an airspace. I have the lid on this. It's very hot on the outside. I'm going to go ahead. I've got some more water boiling. I'm going to fill up the rest of that space with boiling water so we have all the hot mass in there that we possibly can. With that plate on top of the container will remain submerged. So here's what we're going to do. Now, you saw me last time slip one of our thermal cookers inside the Wonder Bag for double insulation. I could do the same thing with this pot to ensure, but I'm not going to do that because so many people do not have a Wonder Bag. Instead, I'm going to show you something that pretty much anybody could use. A cardboard box with a quilt inside. This quilt is 40 years old.
Only 40 years
Only
old?
40. Oh my gosh, it's heavy. All right, so I'm going to put this right down in here. And then we will cover this with the quilt and then with the cardboard box. And it will stay like this on the kitchen counter until it is done. I will first finish filling it with this boiling water before I'm going to tape this down. And then we will come back in about 4 hours and hopefully our supper will be ready. So we will see you then. It's been 4 hours, so let's check to see how we're doing. I'm just going to take the tape off. Oh my gosh, it is so hot to the touch, I can't touch it. Wow. This is great. When we cook with thermal cookers, it is really important. It's critical. It's an absolute necessity to have a thermometer because we're letting this food sit for sometimes hours on end, sometimes 8 hours. And it is a perfect climate for bacteria to grow if the temperature falls below 140 degrees. And therefore, it is necessary for us to double check the temperature every single time. I do that, but I've not always shown that on the videos, but I'm going to do that right now. It is 161 degrees, so that is great. Now, off camera, I talked about it, but I didn't show you that I actually put a plate over the top of the container to hold it down because it had started to float. So I'm going to remove that plate. I have my heat gloves on. I'm just going to try to dip under it, lift it up enough that I can raise it out and get it with my gloves.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Okay, let's set it right here. Let's check the actual temperature of the food. (157). So we are perfectly fine to go ahead and eat this. I'm going to pull out one of those steaks. And we are going to have a little taste to see how it is, to see if it is truly done. It's very soft. The meat is done. It's very, very tender. The apple flavor is good. I can taste the onions as well. This is a great evening meal. We would want to pair it with some side dishes, maybe a green salad, and then we would have a lovely meal that we have used very, very little energy to prepare. There is enough juice here that I could even thicken that and put it over rice or potatoes. That is another option that we would have. This has been, I feel, a success. Actually, Jim and I have learned some things in doing this with our thermal cookers. And this intense use for a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it would work off-grid if we had to do it. And so long as we had a way to get the food hot from the very beginning so that then we can use the insulating characteristics of our thermal cookers. So thank you for being with us on this 3-meal video for examining different ways that we can use thermal cookers. And we will see you very soon for a new video.